The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I just did the Marvel and DC solicitations for July of 2023. And what was very frustrating is I recorded these videos. I recorded one right after the other. So each one was about 20 minutes each, so about 40 minutes a time, almost an hour. And the audio was not captured. So I got the screen recording, but no audio. It was make your jokes, whatever you want to do. I'm pissed off enough. Your jokes won't help. But anyway, I got to the end of that. I was just so like, God damn it. Am I going to go through and do this again? The answer is probably not. Although if you're hearing this and it's already come out, it means I somehow summoned up the internal fortitude to go back and do it again. And I did. So that is the Perch way. That's what I do. But one of the big takeaways in this video, particularly for Marvel, a little bit with DC because they have all that night terror stuff going on, but that's a little bit of a different story. But with Marvel, there are absolutely more limited series. And in this case, I don't mean it in the sarcastic, like, yeah, some of these are ongoing, but they're really wink limited series. No, just straight up, 3, 4, 6 issue runs. There's far more limited series than ongoing series. Far more. When you like look at the data and you just like look at the numbers on your screen, it's striking what's gone on there. So I'm going to read this mail. It kind of, ties into this entire observation, but, that's not a good thing. In my mind, it's not a good thing. And it's not a good thing for one reason. It's the entire construct of comics is really based around the idea of an ongoing soap opera or novel. That's what this is all about. And so if you're moving to short term, you're in some trouble. So let me read this mail. It says, why does it seem that Marvel is only focused on the short run and not the long run? Okay. It says, Dear Perch, is it just me, or is the bulk of Marvel's comics over the last decade or so just feel like the products of short run business strategy? All the runs mostly just seem like stuff you can easily retcon out with the start of the next run. Nothing really seems to matter. With sure some good runs have come out of the last decade or so, but there is this weird feel to it. You get the Spider-Verse related books that tie into the movies, but few of the film tie-in books end up as evergreen stories. Is it just because they're unsure of when Disney would come in and consolidate Marvel into larger Disney publishing like they did last month? I wonder if One More Day really happened because Joe Q knew that Marvel was getting ready to sell in a year or so and wanted to get Spider-Man into a looser state of continuity. I doubt the last part of this email, but it's worth pondering. I have it on reasonable authority that wasn't the reason, by the way, that One More Day happened. One More Day happened because, within the publisher themselves, they believed that looser continuity would be to their value. And they also believed that they'd run out of stories of Spider-Man and Mary Jane. And keep in mind, I am a defender of the Spider-Man Mary Jane marriage. I thought it was a good thing. I thought it was a good character growth, career growth, all that kind of stuff. I think it's a good idea. However, I would be lying if I didn't say that Marvel had slipped into the stupids when it came to that relationship with Mary Jane is secretly smoking and she doesn't want Peter to know, or Peter is turning into a literal spider at one point, or kind of that. It had definitely, put it this way, the poor, just like there are poor writers who do not know how to write single characters, there's also poor writers who don't know how to write married characters in a compelling way. And so, they were married, but that didn't, give it special plot armor against stupid marriage stories. I think you can very clearly have a interesting, cool family dynamic in a very weird way. Pixar proved that with The Incredibles in a little more than an hour and a half. But all the same, Marvel seemed to struggle. A lot of the Peter Parker and Mary Jane marriage stories were shit awful. I'll just say it. Nobody wants to say it, but I'll say it. They were not good. Still, the character growth and idea of the two of them being married was a good one. That was a good idea. It's just, it was buried, under a lot of stupid. But there you go. So, that's all putting that out there. I don't think that's the case, but to the broader context of the mail, you know, the big two are definitely in a mode of short-term storytelling. And in one way, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Look, they're licensing departments, they're companies that have an iconic view of the character. And the characters, I heard this from somebody. God, fuck. I really want to do an interview with this person, have the person say it, because I guarantee you, most of you would not believe me in the person that said this to me, but they're right. They're right, and it pains me that they're right, but they are absolutely right. So if you are listening, like you do, you are correct. But it's a lot of these characters, at least the setup of how comics worked, they weren't really meant to go this long. They weren't meant to go, 60 years with these characters. They were, by their original creations, they were designed to tell a story, and it was successful. And then they kept going with that story. And 60 odd years later, they're trying to figure out how to dig for new gold with these characters, but they really don't know how to do that because they're way beyond when these things would have naturally expired. So the comic publishers, the big two, have tried to transition from, hey, we've got a cool pitch and a character and we're doing something with it, to, okay, well, now it needs to be evergreen and it's going to last for 100 years because it's a licensing beast and we need to keep that going. That's the change that's happened. And it's an ugly change to some extent. The people, it's a different set of talents. And in many cases, you've got fans who are, I think it's a cop out the way it's used, but I am sympathetic to an aspect of this argument, which is a lot of the people who are reading comics, who are fans of comics, they simultaneously want things to be exactly as they always have been, and they want new and different storytelling. And they want both of those in one. Now, the thing is, I think a lot of comic writers and publishers and editors and leaders overthink this because I think they take it too literally. What really people are asking for is a basic construct of a story where, you're telling the comic, it's Spider-Man, and you really just want a new and kind of fun adventure. But you're asking, like, I want character growth and I want change and I want those kind of shifts. That's really not what you're asking for. This dangerously gets into the territory of give people what they want, not what what they need, or sorry, give people what they need, not what they want. I granted this is very sticky in how it all comes together. But at the end of the day, a lot of people who are who are reading comics and collecting comics and everything else, what they're really after is kind of fairly in the moment entertainment. They will often say things like, we're really curious where the soap opera is going. We're really curious about, will Peter Parker and Mary Jane have kids? Will it be Mayday Parker? Will she get powers? Will that look like? They'll be curious about those kind of things and they'll ask for those things. But really what they want is just Peter Parker having a good adventure. They want a hint at that. In many ways, you can blame Chris Claremont for this because Chris Claremont did this story, and I think a lot of people have misinterpreted it as Days of Future Past. And in this story, you saw a future of the X-Men, and it was grim. It set in motion this danger of the mutants are being hunted and they're outlaws and everything else, and it put into the minds of the fans, this is where it's going. And so all the current X-Men adventures, they're fighting the Brood, they're fighting Dracula, Wolverine's doing some shit in Japan. I mean, this was at, 125 to 180 kind of time frame. All of it in the back of people's minds they have this doomed future, and it was very compelling. And every now and then the fans wanted hints of that future, but they didn't necessarily want to rush to that future. They just wanted to kind of have solid X-Men adventures and then every now and then hint at that future. I've made fun of this in videos, but one of the things about the X-Files is that they had this overarching story. You had this guys with black goo in their eyes and all that kind of stuff. And is Mulder's sister, has she been taken by aliens? And are they really? And so that was always hanging over their heads, but they would do the Monster of the Week episodes where, hey, some crazy shit's going down in Portland. Let's see if Mulder and Scully can figure it out. And that model worked for people. It fit the comics. It fit the TV show. My point here is that's really what the people who are collecting comics are after. They're after that kind of dynamic. But a lot of the writers, the editors, leaders kind of, I believe, misinterpreted things to say, well, no, the comic fans are really asking us to really flesh out that future and explain it and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And it always makes more money when we tell those stories in that time period. So we really should do it more often. And it became more and more tempting to kind of explain that whole thing away. I'll say it in a different way. And then, I know I've got run a straight for the mail, but, fans were excited to learn Wolverine's origin, but in many cases, they never wanted to know Wolverine's origin. They just wanted the kind of the tease of that origin. They wanted to kind of be tempted by the fact that there was a deeper story there. And, the fact that they were never going to get it, even if they might bitch, they were okay with it. They were okay with not getting it. And I think there's a lesson in there, which was basically, listen to what the fans actually are excited by. So, this is the Rian Johnson form of storytelling. Don't give people what they're asking for. Give them what they need. I say that's bullshit. That's not the right answer. The correct one is, don't just listen to what the fans are telling you. Do the hard work to understand what the fans want. Truly, truly want. Don't try and second guess what they need. Don't try and tell them what they need. Do the hard work to figure out what they want and deliver that. Because what fans and comic collectors will tell you sometimes is not exactly what they want. You have to actually ask them a second question or a third question. This is where I diverge heavily from the Rian Johnson kind of philosophy, which is, don't just assume you know what they need better. You actually have to do the exact opposite. You may need to ask them 4, 5, 6 times to really get to the heart of what they actually want and deliver that. It's a dramatically different philosophy. Don't take what they say on face value. Don't listen to the very first thing fans tell you. Keep asking questions, keep learning, keep digging in, keep investing into your fans so you really truly find out what they want. I think that's a pretty important point, but anyway, it is what it is. But overall, the comic companies by their nature have moved to shorter term storytelling, things that are a lot more throwaway, because at the end of the day, they don't know what fans want, and they're very, very aware they are not giving fans what they want. They're clear on that. They know it. The comic companies realize that they are failing on some level, and they've got to figure out a better model. The problem is they do not know how to do that. And so in lieu of having a bigger plan, they're just going for shorter and shorter runs. Anyway, there you go. That's my answer. Thanks for listening.